Okay, consideration items for future meetings. So this is where I want to talk about this, or open it
Yes,
up?
you can.
Because this is where I wanted to put this on your district goals. Just future items, since I'd like to update the current goals. I think this is a bigger project to discuss how to do this. I think I added, are the goals in here, right?
The goals are on board book for the board.
Okay, good.
Page 52.
So historically, we've been tracking these goals now, I think, since my second year as superintendent. The board created these goals. The intention was to have some measurable benchmarks and to have them posted on the website for transparency so that the community can see, what's important to the Board of Education, but also as how we measure ourselves as a school district. I think most of these you'll see are rather common and probably should remain. The one thing I would encourage the board to do as we go through this process is provide opportunities for whether staff or community input, whether we do this at a public board meeting and then you could always add a third section of visitor comments, or we could set this up so visitors' comments follows the board's discussion on the goals. But I would encourage the board to just make sure we're getting input from all stakeholders before we restructure or finalize the district's goals.
Were we going to do a retreat? I thought we had possibly discussed doing a board retreat where we could have somebody from the Illinois Association come in and give like a workshop on the goals and start
I think
to,
that's a great idea.
Like a strategic planning.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yes, they do offer that service. I looked it up today.
Very
So-
Hilda.
So I think, my goal or our goal should be, we should have these completed by the beginning of the school session.
That's what I was
in
gonna
August.
ask.
I think that's a fair, set of expectations for us, but, we need to think about a time for a retreat, because it's a scheduled event. It'll probably be as long as a board meeting, possibly.
Or like a
And,
Saturday, I think when we came on, we did a Saturday, we did
Yeah.
it was
I
like a
thought-
full day. We had lunch and we had,
Yeah, we don't need to decide today, I think,
Right.
but I think there are a number of times in the summer where we don't have that second board meeting on that Tuesday. That might be that fourth Tuesday might be the opportunity. Depending on how we do it, I think we can do it, if we have an IASP, we can do it closed. Otherwise, we'd have to do it open.
well, and another thing to consider too, us, we have to do a mandatory board training on Open Meetings Act, and I think our attorney came in and was able to do it on top of the retreat, so we were able to kill a couple birds with one stone.
So I confirmed I had a discussion with the attorney, and the mandatory training that new board members need to complete, Deanna, Bill, and Tom, they need to do that at one of the IASB academies, whether it's in the summer, online, or in November. The Open Meetings Act is a federal training, and it needs to be done. They've changed it now. You have to do it online, take the test online, and then just print the certificate.
So we can't do it with our.
Correct.
Okay.
So that was because when Laura, Gina, and Wes had got on, we brought Franzik in to do that, and they still had to go to the academy to get certified. So,
Money well spent.
a board retreat is absolutely something. It could be during the week. It could be on a weekend. It's not something that has to be like an overnighter. It's just a couple hours that come together. I would say this: if it's not a state organization, if it's not part of the school board association, you have to do it in public session. And so, deciding on the goals, talking about the goals and some of those things, that's fine to do. I would encourage the board to do that in public, and I would also encourage, so that there's opportunities for people who want to come from the community or staff and give their feedback, they could. But I think the retreat part is something the board needs to discuss more amongst themselves and determine. It would be helpful before you sit around the table and discuss goals is that maybe you get to know each other a little better at a short retreat, and just what do you value and what are you looking to accomplish, or what do you think the school should accomplish for its students, right? And
Yeah,
a
if we-
retreat can help bring some of that out.
Like if we combine the retreat also with because our assessment method for, like yourself, one of the jobs that the school board has to do is we have to evaluate our superintendent. So that would be another thing where if we're bringing in the association, we can get some kind of instruction to help us look at the tool we're using, along with that conversation where we can have it among ourselves, see what we have, and then they also bring what's new and are we missing anything or might we want more, we can ask questions, and then broaden that conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a really valuable process. I've been a part of it several times just within my professional life. And Illinois Association of School Boards has come out and he's done it. We've done it several different ways. We've done it on a Saturday where you're there, but they're all stakeholders are there. There are representatives that are teachers, students, parents, admin, board members, community members. They're all kinds of stakeholders. And he facilitates the conversation where you come up with board goals. We've done it where it's just been a board, where he comes in at an evening. It's usually like 4 hours that he comes in. Either way, whatever we decide, I think it's really a valuable process.
So I'd like to ask a couple things, because I've seen these goals on our website, and I think this is a great discussion and certainly look forward to collaborating on how that makes the most sense. So these are goals that have been around for 8 years?
Just about
7, 8 years?
Yeah.
So would it be possible to get some more historic look-back information on it instead of just the 3-year snapshot?
I have a chart from all
Perfect,
years.
okay. And are there KPIs for the other items, or just the ones that are included here? I mean, under communications and facilities, were there actual measurable
No, there were not.
goals? Okay.
It was like, yes, we did this, or no, we didn't do this, but it was just to show that the board was working on these things for that year.
Okay, because I think that's an important thing to consider is how do you measure some of these other items? I mean,
Right.
obviously the top group lends itself to measurement in a very ready way, and in many ways, and certainly as a non-educator, so I'm looking forward to learning from all of you, these all seem to be focused on maybe a similar cohort of our students. So I'm curious to know what other metrics may be available to measure the depth and breadth of our students. And I don't have any suggestions, but something I'm happy to do some research on, but I'm guessing that you have access to a lot of,
Yep.
whether it's through IASB or other professional organizations that would have
Right.
other metrics to consider.
And, like, I know we've heard feedback from the staff about the 26 composite ACT. I remember when Laura, you can feel free to chime in, when we established that goal at the time, the board had wanted to become one of the top 10 performing high schools in the state of Illinois. So they had the administration pool average ACT scores at the top 10 public high schools. And so the 26 composite was like the average of the top 10. So, there was some concern because the goal right below that, the college readiness of an ACT score of 21 or better, the idea behind that was college and career readiness. If a student had the academic background to score at least the college readiness benchmark of a 21 on the ACT, if they were choosing to go into a career pathway, they should be prepared and have the background necessary they need to go that route. But I think some things have changed, and I do agree. I think especially with that's why I said some of these, I think, a graduation rate, attendance rate, engagement in activities are important. I don't know how much those necessarily need to be changed, maybe the benchmarks or what the goal is for those. But those are all signs of a good high school. If kids are graduating, attendance is up and students are involved, right? As far as the academic goals, we're missing a career pathway goal or career education goal, career readiness. We've done some things. You brought up the KPIs or the SMART goal measurements. With the capital outlay plan, we have the life safety plan. So each year is more or less benchmarks. Do we implement projects that had been completed on the life safety? Technology plan, we obviously implemented over the last 4 years, a 1-to-1 initiative. So a lot of times that was, okay, implement year 2 of the one, now add another class of, add more servers, add more. So we didn't want to bog that down with some of the minor stuff as far as some of those other goals. But I definitely think there's some room to be tweaked. My thought to the board, I had briefly talked about this with the outgoing board because they just evaluated my goals before they left for this school year. We as much as an ambitious goal is to have it approved by August, you have a new principal starting July 1st. You're gonna have staff on summer break. You know, I would think maybe by the same time you're approving a budget, you'd wanna have your goals, and my only thought of that is, then that opens up, you'll tend to get more student staff participation when they're back in session than you will over the summer.
Sure.
The second thing to consider with that is, eventually you'll have to set new goals for the superintendent and for the administration. I've always was under the understanding that the goals should drive not only the board and the district, but it should also drive the administration, the whole organization. So the more input you get from the staff, I think the more buy-in you'll get. But then also, when we develop the budget, and as Mr. Walsh mentioned before his exit comments, you know, there may be a small deficit, or we're projecting to have a deficit. Okay, well, whenever there's a deficit, you're always gonna look to make some cuts or to scale back on some things. Once we're all invested in these goals and we all sign these goals, then we should make sure that our budget prioritizes achieving those goals. And things that are not a district goal, that would be the first thing we'd look at to scale back on, or, you know, to cut. I mean, I'm sure you all do something similar in your professional areas as well, right? So I think it's important that as we reformat these goals, they drive the organization, not just the board, and, you know, it drives everybody.
All right, so that's more discussion to come, lots more discussion to come.
Yeah, I think
As we just talked about it, and I think the stakeholders are very important.
I think what we could do is
Definitely
leave it
need to
on
get-
as a business item, so that we
Right.
discuss it every meeting, and, you know,
So-
the next meeting, I could bring some of the background data and some of those things, we could see if we could pull other goals.
So, did we want to leave though with some kind of sentiment where if we have the Illinois Association come in, where we can have kind of a workshop among ourselves before we start to branch out into the community, and then to continue that conversation?
So, you know, the board, we're gonna talk a little bit when we talk about superintendent responsibilities in closed session about my contracts and those things, but I do send out a Friday update. I think I've explained that to most of you when you were running for the board and for the board members on. I had put together a little timeline. I didn't wanna overbear you tonight, but my thought was that we try to leave, by the next meeting in May, kind of with the idea of, okay, let's find, you know, trying to get 2 or 3 dates that we have some
Okay.
commonalities to maybe do a short retreat as a board in June, July, or August, and then do the public session with the goals in August and September. But that can work itself out, I think, as we discuss some more and everybody gets a little more familiar. And if that's not okay with the board can say, hey, no, let's set a date tonight. We can absolutely do that, but I don't know if we want to
Sounds
jump
good.
into all that.
No, I think that's fine. I think that's, you know, we've got 2 meetings in May. We can figure out a time over the summer to meet. I think it's important.
In June, July, and August, I think Wes brought up, we don't have a second meeting. So that's not a bad idea to do the small retreat, maybe on the 4th Tuesday or something, where ISB comes in and we just establish protocols and values with the board. So that as we move into August and September to finalize these goals and do some public sessions, we're maybe on a better ground, stable ground.
I should know the answer to this, but does the organization have a vision and mission statement?
They do. We never reformatted the vision or mission statement under my tenure, and the board did not choose to do that as well.
That's 8 years. I mean, I
Probably
think
something we
that's
should do.
worthy of looking at.
Much longer than that.
Much longer than
Much
that?
longer
Then
than
definitely, I think, another thing
No,
to
just
To
add.
revisit.
If the worst thing that happens is it stays the same, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
You know?
I think, and I don't want to
it's
speak for the other board, but my recollection, and Lori, feel free to chime in, like, they weren't as, you know, the vision and mission, they wanted concrete, measurable things that we were going to work on, and I think that's why they went after more of like goals.
You can have them both.
You know, so,
Well, when that other board came in, we were 2 million in the red, and there were kind of at crisis there, so
Yeah,
there was
same.
some other things that had to get fixed first. Now's a great time to look at that stuff.
It's great. I think, you know, we're really all on the
We
same
should.
page, you
Definitely.
know, wanting the best for the students, so then it starts with mission and goals. Sure. So, all right, well, I'm glad we discussed that, so
Can I ask one other question? Sorry.
No, sure. That's what I'm here for.
So, on this agenda item, consideration of items for future meetings. Let's say one of us has an idea.
Yeah.
That's when you would bring it up.
That's when you
Say it.
That's when you throw it out.
What is the mechanics? I mean, this is the point in the agenda where one could say, what about X? And then it gets added and it may be great or not great or whatever, but that's the way to introduce something
For an
to the
agenda
board
item?
agenda. Yeah.
Yes, this would be where you would say, hey, I'd like for a future meeting to be on the agenda.
To do X, Y, Z, or to discuss.
Yes, or
whatever.
for discussion on this.
Okay.
Then we don't necessarily discuss it at this point. We
No.
would go the next,
No, not-
the next meeting.
It's like an introduction.
Right.
of
Yeah,
something
it's
to
an
come.
introduction. I want to talk about this on the next meeting, so then we can
Get it on.
get some
the agenda.
background and everybody go canvass their neighborhood and get some ideas and feels about it.
Right. And yes, this would be if you wanted to have an agenda item, or I think we'll talk about a little something after the session when we go over some things with the safety and so when you ask for an agenda item, at least have it on there, then when you come prepared to talk or discuss, or you can say a few things if you wanted to, like if you had something tonight, say, hey, I'd like to talk about this because of this. And at least it gives myself and the administration some time to at least do some homework or put some things together or to follow up with you,
Right.
right? Because an agenda, any board member can have an agenda item placed on the agenda. When we go through the further protocols of like a retreat, like you need a majority of the board to, so one thing we want to make sure of, and again, this is just sending out different projects for the administration, you'd want to make sure it's a priority for the whole board.
Right.
Right, so that's why you want to always have it on first as a discussion item or a future discussion item, so everybody can vet it, say their piece, and then if seeing where the majority of the board is at, then we can say, okay, Kevin, go and with your team and put together some research on this or the historical on this and things like that.
Sure.
Go to closed
Are we
session?
ready? Resolved that the Board of Education, Township High School, District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, student discipline, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
In a second?
Second.
Discussion? Nope. Nope.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mrs. Alice?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Alaska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacob?
Yes.
Yes. All right, we're adjourned. You want to gavel it?
So we go downstairs to the boardroom?
Yes.
So you're not.